China has a problem so severe, so irreversible, that it will reshape global geopolitics for the rest of this century. China's population is collapsing, not declining. Collapsing, and there is no way to stop it. The numbers are brutal. China's population peaked in 2021 at 1.421 billion people. It has been shrinking ever since. In 2022, too, China's population fell by 50,000. In 2023, it fell by over 2 million, and the decline is accelerating. By 2050, China will lose between 200 and 300 million people. That is more than the entire population of Germany, France, and the UK combined. By 2100, China's population could fall to 600 million, less than half of what it is today. This is not a prediction. This is demographic math, and demographic math does not lie. When a population ages and stops having children, it collapses. There is no historical precedent for reversing a demographic collapse of this scale. Countries have tried. Japan has tried for 30 years. South Korea has tried. Singapore has tried. None have succeeded. Once fertility falls below replacement level 2.1 children per woman and stays there for decades, the population enters a death spiral. China's fertility rate is 1.09. That is one of the lowest in the world, lower than Japan, lower than South Korea, and it is still falling. Why is this happening? 3 reasons. 1. The one-child policy. From 1980 to 2015, China enforced a brutal population control policy. Families were allowed only 1 child. Violators were fined, fired, or forcibly sterilized. The policy was designed to prevent overpopulation. It worked too well. An entire generation of Chinese people grew up as only children. They have no siblings. Their children have no aunts, uncles, or cousins. The family structure has been destroyed, and now those only children are in their 30s and 40s. They are the ones who should be having children, but they are not. Why? Because raising a child in China is extraordinarily expensive. Housing costs in major cities are among the highest in the world. Education is competitive and costly. Healthcare is expensive. Childcare is expensive. And Chinese culture places enormous pressure on parents to provide the best for their children. 1 child is financially exhausting. 2 children is financially impossible for most families. So even though the government ended the one-child policy in 2015 and now allows 3 children, couples are not having more children, they are having fewer or none. The CCP spent 35 years forcing people not to have kids. Now they're begging them to. Turns out you can't just reverse totalitarian social engineering. P2 Gender imbalance. The one-child policy created a catastrophic gender imbalance. Chinese culture has a strong preference for sons. When families were limited to 1 child, many chose to abort female fetuses or abandon baby girls. The result: China has 30 to 40 million more men than women. These are called bare branches. Men who will never marry because there are not enough women. This gender imbalance is worst in rural areas. In some provinces, the ratio is 120 men for every 100 women. These men are in their 20s and 30s now. They are the generation that should be forming families, but millions of them will never marry, never have children. They are a lost generation, and this gender imbalance cannot be fixed. You cannot create 30 million women. The demographic damage is permanent. 3. Urbanization and economic development. As China industrialized, hundreds of millions of people moved from rural areas to cities. Urban life is incompatible with large families. In rural areas, children are economic assets. They work on farms. They take care of parents in old age. In cities, children are economic liabilities. They cost money. They require time. And urban women have careers. They have education. They have options. Women with education and economic independence have fewer children. This is a universal pattern. It has happened in every developed country, and it is happening in China. Chinese women are choosing careers over children. They are delaying marriage. They are delaying childbirth. And many are choosing not to have children at all. The Chinese government is panicking, have launched propaganda campaigns encouraging childbirth. They have offered subsidies. They have extended maternity leave. They have built childcare facilities. None of it is working, because the problem is not that people do not want children. The problem is that people cannot afford children. And the problem is that Chinese society is structured in a way that makes having children a ration. Here is why this matters. Demographics determine everything. A country's economy is driven by its working age population. The working age population is people between 15 and 64. They work, they produce, they pay taxes, they consume. When the working age population grows, the economy grows. When it shrinks, the economy shrinks. China's working age population peaked in 2015 and has been shrinking ever since. By 2050, China will lose 200 million working age people. That is a 20% decline in the workforce. Who will replace these workers? No one, because there are not enough young people. China's elderly population is exploding. In 2020, China had 264 million people over the age of 60. By 2050, China will have over 500 million people over 60. That is more than the entire population of the European Union. These elderly people will need support, pensions, health, elder care. Who will pay for this? The shrinking workforce. China's dependency ratio, the ratio of working age people to dependents, is collapsing. In 2020, there were roughly 5 working age people for every elderly person. By 2050, there will be 2 working age people for every elderly person. And by 2100, the ratio could be 1 to 1. 1 worker supporting 1 retiree. This is economically unsustainable. Let me explain the economic consequences. First, labor shortages. China's economy has been built on cheap labor, factories, manufacturing, construction. As the workforce shrinks, labor becomes scarce. Wages rise. This makes Chinese manufacturing less competitive. Companies move production to countries with younger, cheaper workforces. Vietnam, India, Bangladesh. China loses its manufacturing advantage. This is already happening. Apple is moving production to India. Nike is moving to Vietnam. Samsung has left China entirely. This trend will accelerate. Second, declining consumption. An aging population consumes less. Elderly people do not buy houses. They do not buy cars. They do not spend on entertainment or travel. They save. They hoard. A society dominated by elderly people is a low-consumption society, and consumption drives 55% of China's GDP. As consumption declines, economic growth slows. Businesses fail. Tax revenues fall. The government has less money to invest in infrastructure, education, or innovation. Third, pension and healthcare crisis. China's pension system is underfunded. Most Chinese workers do not have adequate retirement savings. They rely on the state pension system. But the state pension system is running out of money. Why? Because it was designed when China had a young population. The system assumed that many workers would support few retirees. That assumption no longer holds. By 2035, China's pension system will be depleted. When that happens, the government will have to choose cut pensions, raise taxes, or print money. All three options are politically toxic. Cutting pensions causes social unrest. Elderly people protest. They riot. The Communist Party fears instability above all else. Raising taxes on a shrinking workforce is economically destructive. It reduces consumption. It reduces investment. It slows growth. Printing money causes inflation. It devalues savings. It impoverishes the middle class. There is no good option. China will likely do all three: cut pensions, partially raise taxes moderately, and print some money. The result will be a slow-motion economic crisis. Healthcare is even worse. Elderly people consume far more healthcare than young people. As China's population ages, healthcare costs will hospitals, nursing homes, long-term care, dementia care. China's healthcare system is already strained. In rural areas, healthcare is minimal. In cities, it is expensive and overcrowded. As the elderly population doubles, the system will collapse under the weight, and who will provide care? China does not have enough doctors. It does not have enough nurses. It does not have enough elder care workers. The traditional model, children caring for aging parents, is breaking down. Most Chinese elderly have only one child. That child has their own family, their own job. They cannot provide full-time care for two aging parents. And if both spouses are only children, they may be responsible for four aging parents. This is called the 4-2-1 problem. 4 grandparents, 2 parents, 1 child. The burden is impossible. Fourth, real estate collapse. China's economy is heavily dependent on real estate. Real estate and related industries account for roughly 30% of China's GDP. The real estate market is driven by young people buying homes, young couples, young families. As the young population shrinks, demand for housing collapses. Fewer buyers, falling prices. Developers go bankrupt. Banks that lent to developers face massive losses. Local governments that depend on land sales for revenue face budget crisis. This is not hypothetical. It is happening now. China's real estate market has been in crisis since 2021. Major developers like Evergrande and Country Garden have defaulted. Housing sales have plummeted. Prices are falling. And this is just the beginning. As the population continues to shrink, the real estate market will enter a permanent decline. Japan experienced this in the 1990s. Japanese real estate prices fell for 20 years. They have never recovered. China will follow the same path, except China's real estate bubble is much larger than Japan's ever was. The collapse will be more severe. Fifth, innovation and technological stagnation. Innovation is driven by young people. Young engineers, young scientists, young entrepreneurs. As the population ages, innovation slows. Older societies are risk-averse. They are conservative. They do not invest in new technologies. They do not start new companies. They focus on preserving what they have. China's technological rise has been driven by a young, ambitious workforce. Millions of engineers graduating every year. Hungry, competitive, willing to work 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. As the workforce ages, that dynamism will disappear. Fewer young people means fewer engineers, fewer scientists, fewer entrepreneurs. China will struggle to innovate, and innovation is the only path to high income status. Without innovation, China will be stuck in the middle income trap. It will grow old before it grows rich. 6. Military implications. A shrinking population means a shrinking pool of military-age men. China's People's Liberation Army has 2 million active soldiers. Recruiting them is becoming harder. The one-child policy means that most soldiers are only children. Their parents do not want them to risk their lives in the military. Chinese families are reluctant to send their only son to war. This creates a recruitment problem, and it creates a morale problem. An army of only children is not an army willing to die. If China goes to war, over Taiwan, for example, will Chinese soldiers fight? Will their families support the war? This is an open question, and it weakens China's military posture. Additionally, a shrinking workforce means fewer resources for the military. Military spending competes with pensions and healthcare. As the elderly population grows, political pressure will shift towards social spending. The military budget will be squeezed. China's ability to project power will decline. You can't invade Taiwan with an army of only children whose parents will riot if they die. What is China doing about this? Everything. And nothing. The Chinese government has tried to reverse the demographic decline. In 2015, they ended the one-child policy and allowed 2 children. Birth rates did not increase. In 2021, they allowed 3 children. Birth rates continued to fall. They have launched propaganda campaigns, posters, TV shows, social media campaigns, all promoting childbirth. Having children is patriotic. Children bring happiness. Build a strong China through childbirth. It is not working. They have offered financial incentives, cash payments for having children, subsidized childcare, tax breaks, extended maternity leave. Some cities offer housing subsidies for families with multiple children. None of it is working. Why? Because the incentives are too small. A few thousand yuan does not offset the cost of raising a child, which can have 500,000 yuan in a major city. The subsidies are symbolic, they do not change the economic calculus. The government has also cracked down on feminism and LGBTQ rights. Why? Because they view these movements as threats to traditional family structures. Feminism encourages women to prioritize careers over motherhood. LGBTQ acceptance reduces the pressure to marry and have children. The government has banned feminist social media accounts. They have censored LGBTQ content. They have promoted traditional gender roles. Women should return to the Jiatin family. This is also not working, because you cannot force people to have children. China is not North Korea. Chinese people have access to information. They see how people live in other countries. They know that having children is optional. The government can pressure, it can propagandize, but it cannot force. And the more the government pushes, the more resentment it creates. This has been the big cycle. Understanding why China's demographic collapse is irreversible and why it will reshape the world. Thank you for watching.